and welcome to this Excel tutorial on math functions. In this video, we'll see some common functions like SUMPRODUCT, MROUND, floor, ceiling, mod, and quotient, as well as some others like the following. And let's get started. The first one we'll take a look at is SUMPRODUCT. What is SUMPRODUCT? SUMPRODUCT gives you the total sum of the products of corresponding ranges or arrays. To get this result, what we'd usually do is first take the product of the rows. And then we'd take the sum of these products. This can be achieved in a single step by using SUMPRODUCT, which is equals SUMPRODUCT of array 1, comma, array 2, enter. You can see with this single formula, we've got the final sum of the products. The next function is round. What round does is to round off a value to a certain number of digits. I'm now going to round off the column total here. Equals round, the number, select the number of digits that you want to round it off to. I don't want any decimals at all, so I'm typing 0 here, and enter. And now you can see that all the decimals have gone. The next one is MROUND. What MROUND does is round a number to a multiple. Say I want to round off these totals to the nearest multiple of 1. Then I should type equals MROUND of the number, comma, 1, close parentheses, and now it's rounded it off to 622. Similarly, if I want to round it off to the nearest multiple of, say, 5, I have to slightly change the formula. So we say equals MROUND of the number, comma, multiple of 5, enter. And now you can see the nearest multiple of 5 for 622 is 620. And the same change is reflecting for the other cells as well. So similarly, you can round it off to multiples of 10, 15, 20, and so on. I've mentioned 10 here, so it's taken the nearest multiples of 10. The next one is floor. And what does that do? It rounds a number down to the nearest multiple of significance. Equals floor. I have selected the total, comma, multiple of 1, and now you've got a rounded down value to the nearest multiple of significance. Here, even if I give my input as 622.99, what the floor function will do is it will round it down to the lowest multiple of 1 it can. So it doesn't come as 623 here. The same applies here as well. Even if your value is 814.89, the result will always be rounded down to the nearest and lowest multiple, so it comes as 814. Now what ceiling does is quite the opposite of what floor does. Floor rounds it down to the nearest multiple, whereas ceiling rounds it up to the nearest multiple. The formula is almost the same. Ceiling of the number, comma, multiple of 1, and close. So it's taken the higher number, rounding it up to the multiple of 1, which is 623. Here, it's 815 and 918. So that's all about floor and ceiling. The next function will be the mod function. Mod is used to get the remainder of a division function. Here, type mod of a number. Let me take this number, and I want to divide it by 23. The remainder will be 2, and similarly, the remainders here are 10 and 13. For these numbers, now we've got the remainders. If you want to get the quotient instead, use the quotient formula. Equals quotient, the number, comma, the denominator, let's say 23, and enter. We've got the quotients for the division now. And let's move on to some other mathematical functions. The first one is going to be GCD. The Excel GCD function returns the greatest common divisor of 2 or more integers. The GCD is the largest positive integer that divides each of the integers without leaving any remainder. For example, I've taken 2 sets, number 1 and number 2. My goal would be to find the greatest common divisor of these 2 numbers. So to find it, we type equals GCD, then open parentheses, select the numbers, close parentheses, and hit enter. So the GCD of 10 and 20 is 10. Now click the fill handle and drag it to copy the formula to other cells. As you can see here, the GCD for 63 and 12 is 3, and so on. Now let's move on to the LCM function. The Excel LCM function returns the lowest common multiple of the selected integers. The lowest common multiple is the smallest positive integer that is a multiple of all supplied numbers. So let's find out the LCM of the same set of numbers, number 1 and number 2. The formula is equals LCM of, select the numbers. So the LCM of these numbers is 20, whereas their GCD is 10. And now we can move on to the power function. This function returns the result of a number raised to a power. So let's say I want to raise the numbers listed under the column number 1 to the power of 2. To do it, we type equals power, left parenthesis, select the number, comma, 2, and close parenthesis. So 10 raised to the power of 2 is 100. You can also drag and drop this for the other cells. And we have now squared all the numbers listed under number 1. Next, we'll move on to the square root function. The square root formula is SQRT. This returns the square root of any selected number. So I'm going to find out the square root of the numbers listed under number 1. Equal to square root of the number, enter. The square root of 10 is 3.1. Similarly, for the other numbers here, these are the square root values. Next, let's look at the aggregate function. The aggregate function returns an aggregate in a list or a database. So what are all the aggregate functions available in Excel? When you select aggregate, Excel will automatically list a number of aggregate functions that are available. Say I want to find the average of the numbers listed under this column. So I would select average, and the numbers here, like 1, 2, 3, are linked to these respective functions. So 1 refers to average. Now select average, comma. It then asks you what numbers to ignore during the aggregation process. I don't want anything to be ignored, so I'll select 4, comma, and the array, which will be the numbers listed in the column number 1, close parenthesis, and enter. So I've got the average of the numbers. In order to check that, you can also use the average function, equals average, left parenthesis, number 1, right parenthesis, just to check if the formula is right. So the values are matching. And now you can drag and drop this for the other cells as well. Next, let's move to the Randbetween function. What does this do? Randbetween returns a random number between two numbers which we specify. So say I want a random number between 10 and 100. So 10, comma, 100, this is my lower limit and my upper limit, and then I press enter, and it gives me 24, which is a number that lies in between 10 and 100. So if I drag it, let's see what happens. I'll get a list of random numbers that lie between my specified values, which is between 10 and 100. So a use of this Randbetween function is that, say I want to put some random numbers here to find their GCD. Instead of manually entering my input as 10, 20, 48, and so on, I can use the Randbetween function, equals Randbetween, left parenthesis, 10, comma, let's say 50, and close parenthesis. Then we hit enter. And I can copy this and paste it into the other cells. And that way my goal is achieved here. I have easily created some dummy numbers for these cells using the formula. You can also drag it for the other cells. So the next formula is exponential. Now the formula for exponential is exp. And what this does is return e raised to the power of a given number, where the value of e is approximately 2.718. So if I select a number, say for example 48, the value which I'm going to get is the e value, which is 2.178, raised to the power of 48, the number that I selected, and enter. So this is e raised to the power of the number which we selected. And there you go. These are some of the most commonly used mathematical functions in Excel. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.